Okay, good day to all. Welcome to this press briefing on Hurricane Isaac. Let me take this opportunity to recognize the presence of the Honorable Reginald Austrie, Acting Prime Minister for the Commonwealth of Dominica and also Deputy Prime Minister, Honorable Joseph Isaac, Minister for the Environment, Climate Resilience, Disaster Management and Urban Renewal, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of the Environment, and other senior public officials. This morning we are gathered here to share information to the general public on the Hurricane Isaac tropical weather system expected in our area on Thursday, and I will now call on Mr. Marshall Alexander, the Acting Senior Meteorological Officer, to give a brief on the 11 a.m. position. Mr. Alexander.
Yes, good morning to all. Okay, at 11 a.m., Hurricane Isaac was located near latitude 14.7 degrees north and longitude 43.9 degrees west, and that is about 1,150 miles east of Dominica. The system is now moving towards the west near 14 miles per hour with maximum sustained winds near 75 miles per hour. Some additional strengthening is expected during the next 2 days. However, Isaac is expected to lose some strength as it approaches the islands. On the forecast track, the system is expected to be near or over Dominica by late Wednesday into Thursday. However, we're expecting activity from this system to begin affecting Dominica by early Wednesday. So, tropical storm force winds extend 45 miles and hurricane force winds extend 10 miles from the center of that system. So we are advising residents to make the necessary preparations for the arrival of that system to protect life and property, as we're expecting that system to approach Dominica as a Category 1 hurricane. So also a watch or warning may be issued for Dominica by tomorrow morning.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Alexander, for the 11 a.m. update on Hurricane Isaac. Indeed, some interesting news, as Marshall explained, that the system may lose some of its punch when it approaches the island chain, so that is some welcoming news for us. But that doesn't mean that we should let down our guard, and we should still remain vigilant, monitor the system, and be prepared to take all necessary action to protect life and property. At this point in time, I would like to call on the Honorable Minister for the Environment, Honorable Joseph Isaac, to the podium.
Acting Prime Minister and Deputy Prime Minister, Reginald Austrie, Honorable Reginald Austrie, Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Environment, Ms. Prevost, the media, government officials, fellow Dominicans, good morning. As you are aware by now, Dominica is in the path of another tropical weather system, namely Hurricane Isaac. The various organs of the National Emergency Planning Organization, NEPO, have been meeting to plan and guide the decision makers in preparation for the arrival of this hurricane. All are asked to continue to remain vigilant and to monitor the progress of Isaac. Remember, the onus is on all of us to prepare for adverse events. I have been advised that the possible hazards associated with the weather event may be winds gusting to hurricane force, resulting in flying debris and falling trees, terrestrial rainfall resulting in life-threatening flooding, and landslides may pose a threat to our roadways, and high seas affecting our coastal and fisherfolk communities. Residents in vulnerable areas and building structures should seek safe shelters either at designated shelters of the much promoted neighborly approach. Please bring along your necessities such as water, dry foods, and other items to reduce the burden on the system. Weather monitoring and reporting must be done by trained professionals. I repeat, weather monitoring and reporting must be done by trained professionals. The official and legal body that is responsible for providing up-to-date information on tropical cyclones like Isaac is the Meteorological Office. I'm therefore calling on those who are involved in the transmission of weather information that is not officially from the Met Office, either on radio or on social media, to desist from this practice and allow the authorities that are designated to provide the information to do so, since any error may lead to an increase in the levels of panic associated with these events. I would like to call on all village councils, parliamentary representatives, and members of disaster committees to work together seamlessly in order to ensure that all necessary actions are taken for the safety of vulnerable persons, especially the elderly, children, physically and mentally challenged persons. While the government will continue to do all in its power to ensure the security and safety of all the people of this beautiful nation, let us join our prayers together and ask our gracious God to spare us from the wrath of this impending storm. I ask everybody within Dominica, from the different communities from the length and breadth of Dominica, to remain vigilant. Let us not drop our guards. This is a serious matter, and as I've said before, it is not if we'll get a storm or hurricane, but it's when. We have already planned before at the level of NIPO, being proactive. Last week we had a meeting planning in a proactive manner. So I would like every household to be proactive and to ensure that you have all your necessities in preparation for the storm. Remember, the issue of forecasting weather is not an exact science at this time. It is a combination of science, art, and experience. But we should never take a chance. We should always have our guards up to ensure that we are always prepared. So I'm therefore calling on all Dominicans to be vigilant. Again, be vigilant. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Honorable Minister, for your wise words in terms of continued monitoring of the system, preparation for the various hazards, the official authority for the information dissemination on hydromet hazards, beach order keepers, particularly for vulnerable persons, continue to seek divine intervention and remain vigilant. At this point in time, I would like to call on the Acting Prime Minister, Honorable Reginald Austrie, to the podium.
Fellow Dominicans, our country and our people are once again being challenged by the forces of nature. Only 1 year ago, Hurricane Maria, packing winds of over 165 miles per hour, ravaged our beautiful country, causing death and destruction in an unprecedented manner. While we are still recovering, 1 year, hence Maria, Isaac is threatening. Hurricane Isaac, a Category 1 hurricane with winds of 75 miles per hour, is approaching Dominica, and the indications are that it is expected to continue to strengthen over the next day or two. I have been advised that the hurricane could be upon us by the early hours of Thursday morning, but we can begin feeling the effects by Wednesday. While we are calling on residents not to panic, we want everyone to continue making final preparations for the arrival of Isaac. Please stock up on food and water for at least 3 days and all other items which the National Disaster Office have been advising you to have on hand. As we continue to assess the situation, a decision may be taken tomorrow when NIPO meets at 9 a.m. and all the necessary instructions will be issued then. That may include the suspension of school, and the shortening of working hours. This will be communicated to you by the local media from the Disaster Preparedness Office. If and when that information is provided, I am calling on all residents to remain indoors as much as possible, and anyone found uselessly loitering the streets will be dealt with accordingly. Essential workers, these are the health professionals, fire and police officers, security personnel, disaster officials, and others will be required to continue working. However, we ask you to do so cautiously, being cognizant of the dangers out there. Please do not take any undue risk. Be aware that your personal safety, security, and well-being is paramount. Due to Hurricane Maria last year, we do not yet have our full complement of shelters. However, available emergency shelters around the country may be opened by Wednesday. And on this note, let me urge all Dominicans to please respect the emergency shelters, particularly this time when we'll be using private homes and some public buildings. The use of those buildings will determine how quickly we can return to normalcy following any storm. In areas where there are not sufficient shelters, like I've said, we are asking residents in the neighboring communities to please support and assist your neighbor. I want to at this time pledge that my house can be used as a shelter if and when it becomes necessary. That's my house in Monalwi. It was used during Maria, and it's again available for use. We're still undergoing some repairs. We have no lights yet, but we have a solid roof, a concrete roof over your head, and we have water. So I want to say to the shelter officials and the Disaster Preparedness Committee that my home in Monalwi can in fact be used as a hurricane shelter if and when that becomes necessary. I'm also calling on the private sector to secure all business places in the city of Roseau and elsewhere around Dominica. Remember that our country is still very fragile and vulnerable, so we would want residents to move about cautiously and avoid coastal areas, rivers and waterways, as well as areas prone to landslides and rockfalls. As indicated, we're still recovering from last year's Category 5, and it does not need another hurricane at this time, which has the potential of reversing all the gains that we have made over the last 12 months. We are therefore seeking divine intervention at this time and ask all residents to pray that our country be spared from another onslaught. Please continue to listen to the local media and the weather reports and advisories and announcements. Remember, and the buzzword now is fake news and fake information. And you know, in times like this, you have all sorts of persons wanting to be experts. But we want to urge you and ask you to please listen to the officials as designated by the Office of Disaster Management for your necessary actions. Thank you, and may God bless you.
Thank you, Acting TM, for your guidance and advice on what is expected from the Dominican citizenry and the offering of your home as a shelter. At this point in time, we would open the floor to take any questions for the head table. Thank you. Okay. Well, if there are no questions, we'd like to call this briefing to an end. And the ODM, from its standpoint, would just like to reiterate, regardless of the intensity of the cyclone, that is Hurricane Maria, which is projected to move over or near Dominica on Thursday, there are some hazards, like the minister alluded to, that will accompany this system, and we should pay attention to these hazards. And by this time, all should have their family emergency plans, including communication and kits, ready and always available to sustain you for at least 3 to 7 days. I thank you for participating in this briefing. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other activity later on the day? When's the next advisory coming up?